officers are accused of beating a young man to death as a mob.
The Memphis officers
Yes.
who have now been charged in the Tyre Nichols death. Okay. So all of them have been indicted, but then they've all pleaded not guilty. So the latest in this story, a fifth former Memphis police officer pleaded not guilty, and this was on Thursday, to federal civil rights charges in the fatal beating of Tyre Nichols after a traffic stop. Emmett Martin made his first federal court appearance since he and 4 former colleagues were charged on Tuesday with using excessive force and conspiring to lie on January 7th of the beating of Nichols as he cried out for his mother. If you guys remember, we played that video on the show, edited version, of course, just steps away from his Memphis home. The judge, Annie Kristoff, said that Martin would be released on a $50,000 unsecured bond, which means that he does not have to pay any money unless he fails to appear in court. Tadrius Bean, Demetrius Haley, Desmond Mills, Justin Smith, and again, Martin were all indicted by a federal grand jury on charges of deprivation of rights under the color of law through excessive force and failure to intervene, and through deliberate indifference, conspiracy to witness tampering, and obstruction of justice through witness tampering. So Bean, Haley, Mills, and Smith have entered the not guilty plea as of Wednesday. So this is what we know now. If you guys don't know a little bit about Nichols, he was 29 years old. He died in the hospital 3 days after these officers allegedly punched, kicked, and hit him with a baton in a pummeling that was caught on police video. His being was one of several violent encounters between police, of course, and Black people that have sparked protests over the last couple of years. And then, of course, it sparks up the debate about police brutality and, of course, reform. And here a lot of people are saying, you know, the police are all Black, this and that. I don't care. Systemically, you know how police move. It is always in a systemic way, a white supremacist systemic way, white ideology. This is literally what it is. They look at people as inferior, and they are taught to look specifically at Black people as target practice, as nothing. And they abuse their power, specifically and especially when it comes to us. So let's play a little bit of this clip that gives us also a rundown, and then we'll go ahead and have that conversation.
Memphis, Tennessee, at least 3 of the 5 former police officers who are charged in the death of Tyre Nichols are expected to appear in court. State prosecutors want to try all of the ex-cops together, but today at least 3 of them are expected to ask for separate trials. So, David, what's the argument for separating defendants? Typically, I mean, we're just seeing this, but in a much more sprawling RICO case, right? But what is a compelling reason to separate defendants in a case like that?
Chris, in a nutshell, the argument is my guy wasn't that involved. And it's hard to say that in a case here where officers are accused of beating a young man to death as a mob, but that's what they're trying to do. What you have to ask yourself is, okay, look, is it possible to try one of them without telling the story of everybody else who's directly involved? The only individual I've seen who makes a clear argument along those lines is Defendant Miller. He's like, listen, I wasn't at the traffic stop, therefore my circumstances are different. But really, you can't separate out what he did from what everybody else did that contributed to Tyre's death.
I feel like if you were there, you saw what was happening, you're complicit, like you're with it. You are a part of it. And those officers were caught on tape. They are caught on camera. Ben, what's your take on this?
I mean, you already said a lot of what I was thinking, Rebecca. Like, it never matters to me the color of the police officer. It doesn't. When you operate in the same exact way as a white police officer carrying out white supremacy on Black people, I don't care if you're brown, pink, yellow, whatever, you are carrying out white supremacy. And so these officers being tried now on a federal level for violation of civil rights, I mean, this is to be expected. The only thing I would say is that this is one of the few times you see such a clear indictment also by the media. This is the real difference, right? We see their mugshots. When's the last time we saw mugshots for white officers who have killed black police officers, right? When is the last time we even see them referred to officers? There's a lot of times I feel like this particular story, while they are wrong, they should be arrested, they should get convicted based on the video that I saw. But I do see that there's a lot of condemnations coming here. And they're coming a lot quicker than we normally do see them. So I don't know if that's because they're black, but then again, I do know it's because they're black, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't see this happening with white officers like this happening right here.
Yeah, they're getting protections, but they aren't getting the protections that a white officer would get. But they're getting the protections of an officer. Okay, for it to have lasted this long, we have the evidence on tape. Of course, we seen exactly who they were immediately after, as opposed to what we would see usually
Same week
in the case.
Same week.
Same
Right.
week, and we saw each and every one of their faces. And of course, they want to send us a message. It's not always the white. It's not always that. But we understand that, like I said in the beginning of this conversation, cops, officers of the law, especially here in America, function systemically. And systemically, things are always under white supremacy, white guidelines. And they do not have black people's best interest from inception of officers, from law. We have never been included into being protected. So, you know, and I'm not saying this is all officers, because I know you like to put up the pictures and the videos of the officers going into the hood, giving some kid Jordan
playing basketball.
Yeah, like playing horse,
dancing,
like
doing the Dougie. Yeah,
right, doing the Dougie. Just seen actually an officer having relations with a young child in the hood.
Lord.
I'm seeing all these things. There's all these different things that they want to put out of officers, but we know there is a system. They like to teach, and that's a one-way thing. Go to certain places, certain people. We know what they use as photographs in literal target practice. We know where
City
they're
of Miami Gardens.
We know where these police officers and these police are putting their training camps right here in Georgia. Right here in Georgia, they're putting them in locations where they know the marginalized groups are, whether by color or by sexuality or by whatever. We know they go into the place to they go into these places to put in fear into people, and that's exactly what they do. They abuse their authority, and that's what we're constantly going to see here. The protections are limited for these black officers because now they're not in uniform. So they've done what they can do, and now here you go. You're on your own.
And just a fine point on this, like, this is the perfect example of how black people do and can actively carry out white supremacy, even to death, right? And so when we see black folks on social media doing the bidding of white supremacy, we shouldn't be surprised, because we have an example here of black police officers doing the bidding of white supremacy, all the way to killing a black man. So when you see somebody on social media who is black, who's spreading misinformation, who's doing stuff to divide the black community, doing stuff to harm the black community, don't be surprised, because there's always been black Judases, and some of them happen to wear uniforms.
Yeah, yes, there is. And I don't want people to forget, Tyre Nichols is a person, and he called out for his mother.
That's right.
That's not the first person that we've heard call out for their mother. George Floyd called out for his mother. In these moments, we're watching our beloveds. We're watching people who could be our father, our cousins, our brothers, our sisters, our mothers. We're watching these people be murdered. Back then, we had nothing. Emmett Till didn't have any opportunity or chance for us to verify his murder, even though his body was found and there was a ring that only he can have on his finger. And that place, those police officers literally said it wasn't his body. We now have cameras that are showing this, body cams, and you're still telling us that's not enough information. It's not really, let's figure out what the real issue is at hand. Police aren't the problem. How we train them aren't the problem. Tyre Nichols did not deserve to be, he deserves to be here right now. George Floyd deserves to be here right now. I wish the growth that happened. Because, like I said, Emmett Till and so many more lynchings that happened back in the day were never caught on camera. Today, we're catching these modern day lynchings on camera, and you guys are still saying it's not enough.
Mm-hmm. Well, because the point,
Go ahead, Ben.
No, I was going to say, because the point is to always move the goalposts. They never intended on giving us justice. They never intended on us having a fair shot at this system. So when we get body cams, all of a sudden it's not enough evidence. And then when it is enough evidence, oh, look, they forgot to cut it on. Even though we give them millions of dollars every year for new body cameras, they always fail to cut them on. So it's just an ongoing game of cat and mouse. It's like Linus and Lucy on Charlie Brown. They're forever moving the football away from us. And we're still trusting that if we just put more money into the police, if we give them more training, then they'll start behaving better.
Okay. Yep. And I don't know. I think that we're at a good place here. It's just interesting. It's interesting to see, like you said, how quickly, when the officers are Black, we're getting closer to something that we never got to when we saw a knee to the neck. How many protections people are able to live in their home. We saw how a man who wasn't even a police officer, who murdered someone, who was just literally around trying to be a community cop. George Zimmerman, and how he's able to live his life, have a show, get paid.
Well, he's got a show. He's got a show now.
He had one, and he's followed by TMZ, things like that. He's a celebrity. You have the little boy, Kyle Rittenhouse, who was out here, podcast, supported a political imprint, made a political imprint for what he's done. Listen, these murderers are walking free. But I know we need to make an example, but these people did what they did, and they deserve everything that's coming to them. These officers, I don't care, black, white, purple, green, in between. They deserve what's coming to them. But I want that to be all around, all across the board. I want Tyre Nichols to get his vengeance. I want him to get some kind of honoring, some kind of justice, because we know so many others will never gotten it.
Rebecca, I'm on a call every week, and every week it's a call of families who have been impacted, who've lost a loved one to police violence, Black people. And every week we have a new family that has to join because the week before a cop killed their loved one. Every week, it never fails. We have either one or two brand new families who have to be introduced to this fraternity, this support group of family members who have over the years lost. I mean, we're talking about into the hundreds, right? And so there's just I just want people to put this in perspective. Every single week we have this support group.
And you're saying hundreds
of
people weekly.
Every single week, we always have a brand new, one or two brand new families who have to share their story and be introduced to this support group. So this is far more reaching than I think most people really know.
Yeah. And and I know it's one thing to just see it, but we're living this. We are people, unfortunately, that could be the next, just because of our skin color and just because of what people who are put in uniform are taught. When it comes to us, they took away a father, a brother. Like, this is a family member, this is somebody's loved ones, and they went to sleep. They've made jokes about these murders. Just recently, a cop is caught on tape making jokes about murdering somebody. And this is the abuse of power. This is what we're seeing. This is the abuse of power. It's not protections. We're not being protected. And so, as this goes on, I do want to see how this is going to develop, but I want the same energy for every cop that does this, that has done this. I really want the same energy for every cop, because as we continue to find justice, I feel like the work that Mamie Till and everybody else who is a mother who had to become an activist because their child was murdered at the hands of damn law enforcement, I feel like their work would not go in vain. Their tears will not go in vain. The work that we're doing here is not going to stop when it comes to these type of discussions. It's going to be for us and by us here on this platform when the media is telling us to look the other way. Your support is what helps us move forward. Join patreon.com/like it or not. Help us grow.